to give you an example now for craft-based activity for children aged 0 to 11 months. This age bracket is quite difficult to plan for, particularly when we're talking about process over product. I'm sure when you go off and Google or Pinterest for different ideas, you'll be inundated with lots of examples of how to do handprints with babies' hands and feet, or footprints, and turn them into wonderful works of art, which, as we know, isn't necessarily the best child-led and child-centred approach when we're looking at craft. So we're very much today looking at process over product, and to do that I've created an example for you, either to follow and use, or to just give you a little bit of inspiration and set you off on the right path of what type of things to be looking for. So I've made a DIY light box, very simply using some materials that I had hanging around at home. Got an empty plastic container here that I have put some tin foil on the base of it, and then all around the edge, duct taped it all in, and added in some string fairy lights and a glowing night light that I have in Riley's room. On the top of that then, I've covered it in cling film, and onto that cling film I've added some black and red paint. Now, for those of you that will remember our discussions around children's physical development, we know that up until the age of 5 months, children cannot see the full spectrum of colour. Now, they first start to see black and grey tones, and then that then moves into red. So I've chosen black and red for my first focus colours, because within the age bracket that I'm trying to support in terms of this craft-based activity, I'll be supporting quite young children potentially. So I've got the first focus colours on the top of there, and then I've cling filmed over the top of that and duct taped all around the edge. Now, the reason that I've done that is because not everybody likes messy play, children and parents included in that one. It can be repeated, it can be used all the time, and then you can just whip off the cling film when you've done with it, and maybe add something onto the top, so a different type of activity can go on there. Maybe a non-toxic sensory based activity that you could use, some edible paints for example, and different things like that. So the idea is that this activity supports characteristics of effective learning, so please be researching that within the early years foundation stage. Don't just be looking at the physical communication and language and the personal, social, emotional. Look at the characteristics of effective learning. So that's how children learn, not just what they learn. Now, the characteristics of effective learning that I'm going to be looking at within this activity is playing and exploring. So working with children's natural curiosity of things, okay, engaging with new things and having a go. Now, that sits really nicely with physical development. When we're looking at physical development from birth to 11 months, we are going to be looking at things like building up those core muscles for them in tummy time, and working towards them being able to sit with support or sit unaided and reaching out. So I'm looking at physical development, moving and handling, positioning themselves and reaching out for new experiences or equipment. And the equipment is this, and the experience is engaging with the craft-based activity, making marks and things. Okay, so those are the two areas or developmental things that I've got going on. We also need to think about the health and safety implications of this and how we're going to support children with a craft-based activity at this age. We need to really think about risk assessment. We need to think about choking hazards at all times. Obviously, I've got rid of any risk of that here. I am using battery operated lights, but they're sealed. This container clicks, so it's quite safe. I need to think about the paint that I'm using, making sure that that's non-toxic, and that if I am going to be using cling film, that maybe I've got double layers and it's taped nice and tight. I also need to make sure that there is adequate supervision. So when you're doing your activity plans, make sure that fundamentally your control measure in terms of reducing and eliminating risk is your supervision for the activity. When you are there, when you are modelling, when you are scaffolding for the children, when you are there really observing their ability and making sure that your activity is developmentally appropriate, age and stage appropriate, you will therefore make sure you're eliminating any potential risks, because your supervision will be adequate and you'll be tuning into the child and knowing at what point you need to facilitate some further learning or experiences for them. Enjoy my little video of how to make this simple activity. I look forward to marking your third and final activity plan when it's due next week. Take care. Bye.